Welcome to the podcast. It's the magical holidays. Time for Joe watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. Why, you might ask? Because it sounds like a crazy task to be watching 60 Christmas movies in 60 days. It'll be struggle, no I won't lie. By the halfway point I will lose my mind, but with your support I'm gonna be fine. So let's have a blast on this Christmas time. Join me now and let's find out about today's Christmas movie. Was it good or bad? Happy or sad? Is there another dead mom and dad? Let's get to it with no delay. It's your old pal Joe and he's happy to say welcome to Joe watches 60 Christmas movies in 60 days.
How's it going, everybody? It's me, it's your old pal Joe, and welcome to episode 20 of Joe Watches 60 Christmas Movies in 60 Days. This episode is a special one. It's a notable one, I'll put it that way. Because, well, there's two reasons. One, because we're 1/3 of the way done. I can't believe it. It feels impossible. But it also signifies to me that I have so much more to come. It's daunting, to say the least. Regardless, we're 1/3 of the way done after this episode. High five, guys. High five. High fives all around. For you, for me, for our friends, for our loved ones, for those that watch me do this challenge again and again and again. The other reason this episode is notable is because it's the first one this season that's actually late. This episode was supposed to come out yesterday, but I didn't have it in me. This week has been a hard week for me. Nothing crazy, just a hard, tiring week with lots of little teeny things to do that just sapped me of my energy. So I've been continuing to watch movies, but I haven't been recording episodes. And so this is the first one that's going to be actually officially late. I don't feel great about it, but it's not going to stop us. We're not going to let it, trip us up and let it snowball. I'm actually doing, get this, I'm actually doing 3 recordings in a row after, as of this sitting. I'm going to record this one, then I'm recording episode 21, and then I'm recording episode 22, so that can come out. It'll be coming out. So the next 2 will come out on time. I don't know why I'm getting into this minutia. I think it's just because I'm tired. But you see what I'm saying. I got a big recording day ahead of me, so let's just jump right in to today's movie, A Very Vintage Christmas. Oh, but wait, Joe, before you do, you have to say hello and then give a nice big shout out to your friends over at Third Eye Comics. Third Eye Comics, the home for graphic novels, comic books, tabletop games, role-playing games, board games, music, and movies. You can visit one of their many stores in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. You can find them all out at thirdeyecomics.com, find out where they're at. But if you want to order online, you want to order something to your doorstep delivered with care and precision, you want that thing brought to you instead of you having to go to it, then all you have to do is go to shop.thirdeyecomics.com and you can find something that'll tickle your, I was going to say pleasure bone, but that doesn't sound right. Because it wasn't funny bone, because I'm not saying tickle your funny bone. It's not necessarily hilarious. So, for the time being, we'll just have to stick with pleasure bone. So yeah, please support Third Eye Comics. Thank you so much. Let's get to today's movie, A Very Vintage Christmas. This movie is about some people starting up a vintage antique shop, and that's it. Then adventure ensues. I actually didn't mind this movie because there's a neat little plot that's interwoven in the middle of it that kind of took some of the pressure off the standard, romance that is inserted into so many of these. We open on a sign for the Very Vintage Antique Shop. We learn that the shop is just getting ready to open, and it's being run by our main character, Dodie, and her buddy, Olivia. Dodie was able to help fund the store thanks to a loan from her dad, and she has a lot of pressure on her, mostly put there by herself, in order to make this store a success so that she can pay her dad off and prove that she knows what she's doing. We get a quick tour of some items in the store as both women express their excitement for the upcoming big opening. Dodie decides she wants to hang a wreath above the front door of the store, but it's pretty high up. A guy walks by and offers to help. He explains he climbs ladders and builds stuff for a living. She allows him to help. He nimbly climbs the ladder and the wreath is hung. She's very appreciative and introduces herself. He does the same. He's Ed. He's her upcoming love interest. She tries to sell him on the store, not like to come in and buy something because they're not officially open yet, just to sell him on the idea behind the store. And he admits that he's just not really much into old things, into the past, if you will. And for some reason, Dodie finds this very hard to believe and starts rattling off examples of things he might be into, but I guess forgets he's into. What about Big Bangs? No, not really. Classic films? No, not really. Clark Gable? No, not really. Andrews Sisters? No, not really. Romantic movies? Romantic movies? That's not an old thing. They make those now. I've watched like 40 of them. That's not true. I've watched about 18 of them so far this year. She asks why a place called Mountain View, which is where the store is located, but it's not where she's from. She's opening the store there. Why is a place called Mountain View not having any snow? He says they actually haven't gotten snow there in 20 years. What is the trend here with these movies and places not getting snow? I feel like it's a weird like movie reaction to global warming and winters not being what they once were in many areas of the world, if not America, just on American soil. And it's like they want to keep addressing, well, we haven't gotten snow here in 20 years. And instead of them addressing the existential dread that might represent, the movie just has snow appear by the end of the motion picture. Eventually, Ed leaves and Dodie is smitten. Inside, Olivia is all over Dodie about who the hunk was. Dodie really isn't that impressed with Ed yet, but we know she will be. While cleaning out a wardrobe that they have acquired, Dodie finds something hidden in one of the drawer compartments. It's a metal case with a lid. She carefully removes the lid, uncovering many little items inside, including a pretty brooch, which is shaped like a Christmas tree, like a bejeweled Christmas tree, but I don't think they're real jewels, and a photo of a man and a woman posing with Santa. Even a second place ribbon to a gingerbread competition. There's also a mixtape there filled with holiday songs, all of them big band arrangements. Dodie says whoever that made this mixtape and her, they have the same taste in music. Plus, all the items within are right up her alley. And she reads, like, for example, I don't know what this has. This doesn't have anything to do with anything. Except that Dodie finds herself obsessed with the past. And so she finds something that's inherently old because it's from the past. It was something hidden in a compartment in a wardrobe. And so it can't help but be older than anything else. And so she now is connecting with it on every level. Oh my God, there's an old photo. I love old things. Oh my God, there's an old mixtape. I love old things. There's an old brooch. I love old things. There's also an old letter inside. It's from a Carl who expresses his love for a ginger. Dodie decides that she needs to find the person who owned this box. She couldn't get the whole address from the letter. Most of it is like worn away. But it has leads her to a neighborhood, or the same street, but again, she's not sure what house number it is. She asks around but finds nothing. Nobody knows anything about a ginger or a Carl. Eventually, a realtor that she runs into points out a house nearby that she's working with, where there's a handyman that might have an answer for her. Who should the handyman be? But it's Ed, the guy she met earlier. Turns out that house is his family's old place. His mom is the realtor that directed her to Ed. He's not familiar with a Carl and Ginger, but can confirm that he's not. Why did I write that? Anyway, he just says he's not familiar with them. They flirt a bit, but then it's back to the store where Olivia is stunned to hear Dodie ran into the same guy again. Dodie downplays it as insignificant, which is good because Olivia has news. She called the store where they found the wardrobe, who put them in contact with the person who originally put it on consignment there. Unfortunately, the contents are not hers. She's not Ginger, nor does she know who that is. She got the wardrobe at a swap meet years before. But then, Ed the contractor arrives at the store. He apologizes for acting what he feels like was a jerk earlier, which it wasn't. It was fine. But he might have an idea where the photo of this, I mentioned this earlier, there's a photo of a couple taking a picture with Santa Claus. And so he might have an idea of where that was taken. For whatever reason, Dodie is not interested in his help, despite Olivia prodding her to accept it. When Ed leaves, Dodie says he's not my type. It also is not the right time for her. She talks about this throughout the movie. It's not the right time for her. And I was wondering if there was like an older relationship that fell apart or something. And maybe there is record of one. But mostly she's just talking about how she's starting a new business and she doesn't really have the space for a new relationship. And that seems like a bad reason to not pursue someone, because, well, in this movie, guess what? Spoiler, she does pursue him, and I guess she does find a way to make both of them work. So she was just wrong. Olivia says despite the fact that he's not her type and despite the fact that it's not the right time, she actually still could use the help in discovering who owned that box. And he knows the town since he's from this town. And she's like, you know what? That's a good point. And she goes out and she catches Ed before he leaves. He's still in. Says, this is a team up. He says it like it's really cute to him that they're teaming up together. He takes her to the place where the photo was taken, which is still, in this day and age, used for Santa Claus pictures during the holiday season. So there's this elf there that's kind of helping direct people to and from the Santa lap. You know what I mean? Like, it's time for your photo. Have a seat. Merry Christmas. Take the photo. Now get off of Santa's lap. She's also in the photos, just like in the photo that they have where there's a Santa, the couple that they're trying to find, and this elf. They notice that the woman in the picture, the elf in the picture, is posing the exact same way the elf that's currently there in the modern Santa village is. So they ask her, said, is this you? And she says, yes, that is in fact me. She goes, well, do you remember these people? And she studies the photo for a moment. She goes, I do in fact remember those people, because that woman was extremely nice to me. It was one of my first days doing this job, and I was really nervous, worried about doing a bad job. And she really made me feel comfortable and encouraged me to do good. And then she also remembers that the guy in the couple said that if they ever got married, it would have to happen on Christmas Day. I don't know why that is. I've seen the whole movie, and I have no reason why that was a clue at this moment, nor do I understand why the guy would have said it when he said it. There's nothing inherently Christmassy about this relationship other than the movie takes place at Christmas and this is a photo with them with Santa. Unfortunately, this is all about all the information the elf has, but she does invite them to get a photo with Santa. They do, and it's whatever. Ed was more into getting the photo with Santa. Or was it the other way around? One of them was way into getting the photo with Santa. The other one wasn't that into it. Cut to them at a diner, I don't know. Maybe it's not a diner. I'm going to call it a diner. It's a cafe, maybe? It doesn't matter. I'm just tired. They get some coffee and some cranberry cobbler, which they both really enjoy. They talk about the photo, which leads them to talking to them about their time as children. We find out Dodie was always into older things, which led her to wanting to open the antique store. Ed says he thought the day with her was really fun and that they make a great team. This throws Dodie off a bit, and she goes, look, just to be clear, I'm not in a place for a relationship right now. I'm in a new town, I have a new business, and I just don't think it's the right time for me. And he goes, I didn't mean it that way. I was solely referring to us working on this mystery. Back at the shop, Ed is helping to spruce up the shop with some new lighting. This leads to Dodie talking about how all the items in the store have a story, but Ed simply isn't into the history behind these items. Since Dodie is into the history and the stories behind these items so much, he asks her to explain the brooch, the Christmas tree brooch, in the metal box. She weaves a tale about how it was a gift for when the couple got engaged or something along those lines. He says, well, if it was that significant, how did it end up in this box and it end up in that wardrobe? He digs around the box and finds a library book that was never returned. This gives them an idea. They immediately head to the library from whence it was borrowed. There's a librarian. Oh, this is so silly. I don't know why I'm including all these details. Basically, there's a librarian there who's reading a story to some kids. They ask for his help. First, he makes them pay the fine on the book. I don't know how much it is. I thought the movie would tell us the fine is going to be $200, but they don't. So they just pay the fine. And then he has to read this story to these kids, so he can't help them look for information about who borrowed this book. But they offer to cover him, and they read the story to the kids, so then we get a bit with them reading towards the night before Christmas to the kids. And then he comes up and says, sorry, I couldn't find anything in the stockroom. I couldn't find the files for this. And then they go to the storeroom, and they find the files for this book being borrowed. And so none of this made any sense. They could have just cut all that out and had them go right to the storeroom to look themselves. They eventually find the ledger that includes the data from when the book was borrowed. And they see that it was borrowed by a Carl Naylor? It's hard to see exactly how the last name is spelled. But there's also an address. They head over to where that address is, but find no house in its place. A neighbor explains that it was torn down 20 years ago, but she does remember Carl. His name was Carl Baylor. But does she remember a Ginger? She goes, maybe. There was a woman that I saw hanging out with him a lot, but I didn't know her name. They are always going out to some event or another. Later they discover they can find no record of a Baylor in town, at least not currently. Then they notice a movie ticket in the box for a showing of It's a Wonderful Life. Turns out Ed loves that movie, despite the fact that it's old, and he said he's not into old things. And she's like, but this is an old movie. And he goes, yeah, but it's a good movie. And we learn nothing from this scene. They eventually watch it and eat popcorn and touch hands when they both reach for popcorn at the same time. And Dodie makes a face like she's not too bothered by touching hands with him. Jumping ahead, Dodie and Olivia talk about the opening being only a few days away. Ed stops by with a vintage train set that belongs to him that he's happy to donate to the store to sell. He also wants to set it up in the window so they can get a few new eyeballs. They talk about the box for a bit. They find a record of a tree lighting ceremony in there. Ed mentions actually that's something that still happens to this day, and tonight is actually the 50th anniversary tree lighting. Maybe Carl and Ginger will be there. Cut to the ceremony, they ask around, even calling out for Carl and Ginger, but have no luck. They also run into Ed's mom, the realtor. She's happy to see them hanging out and would love to get lunch with Dodie at some point. Dodie is in. Then it's time for the tree lighting. Everyone claps. It's a wonderful time. We get small talk with Dodie and Ed, and he's certain the store will be a success. She has such a passion for these items. Dodie is touched. She decides to get a Christmas tree for the shop, so Ed shows her to a local salesman. Cut to them turning on the lights on the tree in the shop. It's so pretty. Then they decorate the tree a little bit, but then they dance together to some old music. They have a nice time. They start to kiss, but nope, they don't kiss because Dodie pulls away, and he apologizes for maybe making her feel uncomfortable. She says it's okay. He asks if maybe things might change between them. She's not so sure. They decide to dance just as friends and have a nice time. So let me pause here because I want to talk about something that I liked about this movie. The mystery of the box is fun. I like that there's this through line throughout the whole movie. So that's one thing I like. The other thing I liked is the open nature of their relationship and its challenges. This isn't a thing where she's holding back information from him and she's like, well, I don't want him to know that I'm not ready for a relationship. She tells him right up front. She's very earnest about that. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that openness. And I appreciate that they have to kind of negotiate that as they go through their story. And I like that a lot more than all the kind of invisible hurdles that the characters run into all the time. I like that this hurdle, this challenge was put up front. And it's different than... I think mostly I like it because it's different than the other movies. But I also like it because it's not necessarily more mature, but it's a storytelling that's more honest. And I feel like people are mostly honest about this sort of thing. At least much more than the cartoonish ways that people behave in the traditional rom-coms, or not rom-coms, as we call them here, rom-roms. Jumping ahead, the ladies open their store one morning to find a really bad leak from a storm the night before. They need to get that roof fixed. Do they know a contractor? Sure enough, they do. His name is Ed. Cut to Ed offering them guidance. He says it'll be okay. We get a work montage where everybody fixes the hole and Ed puts new roofing tile on there. It's great. They work through the night, although the ladies conk out a bit earlier, and wake up to find that the work has been done. Dodie and Olivia are so appreciative of Ed's efforts. Then the trio make plans for the grand opening, which is still in another day or two. Ed offers to let Dodie and Olivia use his mom's kitchen to make a bunch of cookies for the grand opening. Cut to the kitchen where we get a little cooking. It's not really a montage, but it's just a scene where they're baking cookies and decorating cookies. Now it's time for the grand opening. They even have carolers there singing in the store. They check in with a few of the customers browsing, but Olivia notices a man who's eyeing a key that's inside of the mystery box. She tells the man that she didn't mean to leave it out and says that this item isn't for sale, but he's really interested in it. And they said, well, I'm sorry, we don't even know what that key belongs to. And he goes, oh, I know what the key belongs to. Look at this inscription here. This means it's a key belonging to a safety deposit box. And they're like, oh, man, now we have more information. They don't sell them the key. Instead, we cut directly to them at the post office. So they've had their grand opening. Oh, I forgot. So at the end of the grand opening, we find out they didn't sell much. What else could they do? Olivia says, I could use Wix to build a website so that we can sell stuff online in addition to selling stuff in the store. And I got so excited at both the mention of building a website for a store and the specific mention of Wix. I don't do the movie tropes anymore just because I got tired of it. And most of the time they didn't exist in these movies. But I will never forget the tropes that existed once before. And one of them was building a website. There were so many movies where they build a website. And there's a handful where they mention specific product placement, such as, I'll use Wix to build a website. I'm not an expert, but even using their software, I can probably build something good. Anyway, Dodie has an idea of her own to focus on selling people on the story behind the items instead of the items themselves. This is confusing, and we're going to touch on it a little bit. We cut to them at the post office. A postal official confirms the key is one of theirs. Someone has been paying for this post office box all these years to keep it open. Every month, the check arrives. They unlock the box and find inside an engagement ring in a box and a note. And the note says, "Ginger, will you marry me?" Signed, Carl. The ring and the note have been waiting there for years for Ginger to find it, but they still remain. They put the ring and the note back and lock the box. The official refuses to give up the address who sends the checks. But Ed distracts the official so Dodie can sneak a peek at the screen. They find out the address is about 30 miles away. The two of them go get lunch and discuss what to do. Ed is worried that this won't have a happy ending. We know for a fact that the ring was never retrieved, and so they never got married, because if they did get married, why would they leave the ring there? Why would they keep this post office box open? Dodie doesn't really want to hear any of this potential negativity, and he's saying, but I'm worried you're going to get hurt because you're really banking on this being a happy ending, because she's talking about, like, I'm a romantic and I love old movies, and this is like an old movie, and she really is, counting on it to be a nice story that ends up in a cool way. And he's worried, given the evidence that they have mounting, that it may not be the case. She doesn't want to hear it and almost throws a tantrum about how A, she could handle it if it is bad news, and B, there won't be bad news. She storms out of the diner. The waitress lets Ed know that she can tell Dodie is wild for him. It's just sometimes people get scared and find a reason to stay apart instead of staying together. Ed is comforted by this wise and sage advice from the waitress. Cut to the new website being shown off for a few seconds. Dodie, and then we see Dodie selling an item to a customer. And I think she's lying about the story behind these things, sort of in a way where she says, and this ashtray is rumored to have belonged to George Washington himself. And that way she's not saying it belonged to George Washington. She's just implying that there's a chance it could have. And sure, there's a chance for anything. As I like to say, everything's 50-50. It either happens or it doesn't. Anyway, she decides to seek out the address they found at the post office on her own. She finds a heavily decorated house for Christmas. A man inside opens the door, and he's dressed like Santa. He explains that this is for the neighbor kids. They expect it by now, because he's a professional Santa, and when he comes home, the kids in the neighborhood like to see Santa themselves, so he just kind of stays in the Santa garb for a while. She explains to him the saga of the box, and he can confirm that the items within refer to him. We find out that her name really wasn't Ginger, though. It was a nickname based on Ginger Rogers because of how much she liked to dance. He's blown away that Ginger kept all of these items all these years. He even gave her the post office box key in hopes that she would use it. And he said to her, when you're ready to make it work, use this. And all these years later, he just still didn't have the heart to stop paying for that box just in case. We find out that Ginger's the one that broke it off. Dodie asks if it's okay if she tries to find Ginger. She wants to know where life took her. He writes down Ginger's real name on a flyer for a charity dance that he's going to be being Santa at. He encourages Dodie to come. They share a hug and she's on her way. Cut to the store being very successful, but Dodie not caring. She's trying to find the woman online. It takes a while, but she finds her. She tells Olivia she's not going to believe who this woman is. Well, I guess she wouldn't have worded it that way within the world of the movie, because that implies that it's a certain person who would have some kind of connection to this. And I think she just said, you're not going to believe how this turns out. We cut to her going to Ed's house, telling him that he needs to come with her. She knows the whole story behind the box. So they go to the diner, and he goes, oh, wait a second. It's the waitress, isn't it? So the waitress comes over and takes their order, and he goes, it's the waitress, isn't it? But she's not saying. And he goes, wait, isn't it the waitress? And then someone walks in the diner. It's Ed's mom. Ed is very confused. Dodie brings out the box, and Ed's mom has her breath taken away. She asks where Dodie found it. Dodie explains the journey that they took to get to her. She runs through the story of the items in the box. Ed's mom explains that it was long before she met Ed's dad. She had dreams of an art career and was determined nothing would stand in her way, including Carl. She didn't know if she could have a career and a love life, or love in her life at the same time. We also find out that she divorced Ed's dad at some point, saying that they just never really sparked the way that, she had hoped. Ed is sad but understands. When she sees the brooch, she comes to tears. She says they have no idea what this means to her to have found these items again. And we cut to Dodie plotting with Olivia on getting Carl and Ginger back together. Olivia wonders if she's doing it for herself. Dodie insists, no, this is just for Carl and Ginger. This isn't about me proving anything about the world to myself. And then she remembers the dance that she got the flyer for from Carl. We get a scene where Ed's talking with his mom about feeling guilty that she didn't get to be with Carl, and then somehow his existence kept her from pursuing that. She says she wouldn't change any of it. Cut to the dance. We find out that Carl the Santa knows that Ginger is on her way. He's very nervous. He spent so many years wondering about this. He hopes it goes well. That's when Ed and Ginger arrive. Santa introduces himself and acts like he doesn't know her at first. He then asks her to dance and pulls his beard off. She is so happy to see her old boyfriend Carl. They ecstatically dance as Ed and Dodie watch. He then takes Dodie's hand and dances with her. We cut to Olivia running the numbers back at the store, and she says to herself, between word of mouth and this beautiful new website, she says that. Anyway, the store is doing great. Back at the dance, the midnight bell tolls, and it's officially Christmas. And it's snowing. It's a Christmas miracle. Carolers have arrived outside of the store. Oh, wait, this is back at the store. So Dodie is there as well. I forgot. It doesn't matter. We're almost done. So this is after the dance. So the Dodie's back at the store. That's when they run the numbers. They find out things are going to be great. And then there's carolers outside of the store after midnight. Ed is among them because he's hiding there to do his big reveal. He gives Dodie a key to a post office box and says he hopes it doesn't take her 40 years to use that one. Ed and Dodie kiss. The end. So one of the things that I did not enjoy about this movie was the plot about the store and whether it's going to do well or not, because it doesn't ultimately matter to the story itself. They just kind of sweep it away. It reminds me of the Saving Christmas Spirit movie that took place in Scotland, I believe. No, it was Ireland. And no, it was Scotland. Sorry, it doesn't matter. But the point is how this woman who's there to, look for a secret shrine, to look through these journals, to find secret information that's been lost to the ages. Every day has her go, and then tomorrow we're going to check out such and such. And then the next scene starts with them going, well, that didn't work out. You never see them doing any investigation. You never see them doing any research or adventuring. And I liked that this movie does that. But it does treat the plot about the store doing well or not doing well in that same vein. It's brought up at the beginning. You feel like it's going to be a big part of the story. Oh, is it going to do well? I don't know. Oh, man, there's a big leak in the ceiling. Can we afford to even fix it? I don't know. Nobody bought anything on opening night. What are we going to do? I don't know. And then it's just done. Once Dodie starts kind of lying about where these items come from, and Olivia makes her website using the service Wix, everything just is kind of okay at that point. Everything's fine. Just moving on. We're done. So I did not like that. I don't like these movies, like they bring up these plots, but then they don't really want to deal with them, so they just put them in the background. Besides that, though, I enjoyed this movie. Who's the MVP? I'm going to give it to... you may notice this if you listen to a bunch of episodes. I like to give it usually to bit players who just really, come in with something to prove. And I think I'm going to give it to Carl the Santa. I enjoyed his performance, even though it was very small in the overall movie. But I enjoyed that. So he's the MVP for this episode. And with that, we're done with this episode. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for joining us for the 20 episodes so far for Season 4. And with that, my friends, I'm going to hit stop. I'm going to hit record. I'm doing this all over again. Take care.